Episode 319. How can you compare him with Dad? After staying in the office alone for a long time, he heard the secretary knock on the door and walk in. Mr. Jackson, the partner's here. Okay, let him sit for a while. Yes. Jackson quickly stood up and went to the bathroom to wash his face before he went out. After returning the phone to Keith, the two men sat on the living room sofa and chatted. Serena went to the room of the children and found that Jeremy was playing a game with Seth in the room. Julianne went to play with dolls with Nola. The children's room was covered with colored mats, and Jeremy was sitting on the floor at the moment with the cell phone put on the bed. Nola watched him play the mobile game, and when he killed the monster, she called, "Jeremy!" He did not turn his head and continued to play. Dad is back. Are you not happy? Dad has been outside for so long and he really wants to see you and your sister. He always likes you very much. Why don't you call him Dad? Jeremy was killed in the game. A bit unhappy, he put the phone away, stood up, and stomped his foot. Serena took Jeremy up and hugged the little guy with both hands so that he couldn't walk away. Go out with me and meet your dad. Seth was playing the game while listening to the conversation, so he was killed several times. No. Jeremy struggled uncomfortably and wanted to get on the floor. After discovering that he couldn't manage to do it, he became quiet and said, I don't like him. Why? He is your father. I just don't like him. Just hate him. Jeremy glanced at Serena and said, He doesn't want you. He doesn't cherish you at all. He's not as good to you as Uncle Henry. Over the years, everyone had witnessed how Henry had treated Serena. However, Serena only thought of him as a friend. She never thought that even Jeremy, a 4-year-old, could see it so clearly. She was slightly dazed. But she pinched his face and whispered, Uncle Henry is your uncle. How can you compare him with Dad? Why not? Uncle Henry can also be our father. He's very good to us, right, Seth? Jeremy looked at Seth. Seth heard the words, blinked, and wanted to nod, but looking at the expression of Serena, he immediately lowered his head and did not express his position. Jeremy saw this and snorted. What are you afraid of? My mother would not hit you. Seth put the phone aside. Putting his hand on the bed, he said with a tender voice and his blue eyes blinking, Your dad is better. Everyone said that your father is a very powerful person and earned a lot of money when he was young. He bought many big houses and has many, many cars. All the cars in our yard are bought by your father. This is what Grandpa and Uncle Kenneth told me. Uncle Henry has a big house and car. Serena heard the words, became silent for a moment, and asked, Why do you like Uncle Henry so much? The little guy looked at Serena and did not hesitate to blurt out, Because Uncle Henry likes you. Dad also likes me. He also likes Jeremy and Julianne very much. I'm sure he will like Seth very much as well. He does not. If he likes you, he won't leave for so long. Jeremy's eyes were exactly the same as Jake's, dark and clear, bright and beautiful. If he truly loves a person, he will not have the heart to leave. Serena heard this and her heart shook. It was hard to believe that this actually came from the mouth of a child who was less than 4 years old. Looking at him, she felt slightly lost. This is what Uncle Henry told me, Jeremy said. Serena was a little moved and her smile disappeared. She squeezed the face of the little guy. On the thought of Henry, her eyes dimmed. Your father had a hard time. He was used by the bad guys because he wants to protect me. Now the bad guys were defeated by Dad, so Dad is back. Jeremy stared at her and looked at her unhappy. He asked, Mom, do you think I am Julianne? Serena smiled and whispered, Remember the last time you were kidnapped with your sister? Yes, the little rabbit was killed by Julianne. Yes. Serena smiled even more. At that time, there was a guy with glasses and a cap. Remember? Yes, the bad guy wanted to catch us. Fortunately, Mom was here and we will be taken away. No. Serena shook her head. That man is Dad. It was only at that time that Dad couldn't come to us, so he had to wear a cap and glasses. And the last time he was at the amusement park, Mom and Julianne almost died. Do you remember? Yes. But since he was too short, he couldn't see what had happened, and Henry told them later. That time, your father saved your mom and sister. The sun was very big that day. Your father was sweating. After taking your sister down, he came to pick me up. If it wasn't for your father, then you would have no mother. Jeremy listened to her words and felt a little incredulous. Really? Of course, it's true. She tapped on his nose. When did Mom ever fool you? But Uncle Henry said that because Mom was having an illusion. That person is just a kind stranger, not that person. That person died long ago. Turns out that he is not dead, isn't it? It was him on Monday. Jeremy was speechless, but still wasn't convinced. Why did he run again later, making you cry so hard? Why did he let you cry? If you love a person, you cannot let her cry, right? This is also what Uncle Henry taught you? Hearing these kinds of sentences from a 3-year-old from time to time, Serena felt a bit dumbstruck. Jeremy looked up and said with conviction, Yes! Uncle Henry taught me a lot of things, not like that person. He's never bothered to talk to us. Hey, Jeremy. Serena felt a bit exhausted. Why is this little guy so similar to his father? So stubborn once he made up his mind. Julianne was much better, naive, and cute. Although not as smart as Jeremy, she was easier to discipline. Serena was helpless, holding the little guy and trying to say something when she heard footsteps coming from outside. The familiar frequency. It was Jake. The tall man walked in, and when the boy saw him, he immediately turned his head, climbed out of Serena's arms, and joined Seth.